Onimusha is a cult classic, but should it be? Join me as we solve some annoying puzzles, explore the game's story, and unlock a sword that defeats enemies in one hit. Today, we'll answer the question, Onimusha Warlords, was it actually good? I've never played any of the Onimusha games, so I'm coming at this from a fresh perspective. I'll also be playing the HD remaster on PC, and we'll get into the differences later. The game opens with a letter from our cousin Princess Yuki, who's requesting help at Inabayama Castle.
Dear Samanosuke, I am writing this letter in the hopes you will read this in time to help.
There's been rumors of monsters and missing servants. I wonder if the two are related. We arrive with our ninja friend Kaide and split up and begin our search. You play as Samanosuke Akechi. He's modeled after and voiced by real-life actor Takeshi Kaneshiro. Takeshi also re-recorded all of his dialogue for the HD remaster. It's worth mentioning his character is inspired by the historical figure Akechi Hidemitsu. Onimusha is a historical fantasy game, a lot like the Assassin's Creed series. What that basically means is that it uses real people, places, and events, and then interjects some fantasy elements into it. We quickly find Princess Yuki, but are killed by a big demon. Thankfully, we're resurrected by spiritual beings known as the Ogres. These guys grant us the power of the series' iconic gauntlet. Using it during combat, we can absorb enemies' souls by holding the circle button. The souls come in 3 flavors: red, which is XP you'll use to upgrade weapons and equipment, blue, which refills your magic bar, which is used for magical attacks, and yellow, which recovers your health. It's also worth mentioning enemies often drop multiple souls, and bosses can drop souls based on damage. Pay attention to which souls are dropped. As an example, you don't want to take a hit trying to absorb a blue soul when your magic gauge is already full. I mean, there's no point. As we continue down the road, we come across this guy who's having a bad day. The combat's pretty simple. L1 is block, R2 locks on, square to attack, and if you time your basic attacks just right, you can dodge and strike for a lot of damage. It's not necessary for beating the game, but it is super satisfying when you pull it off. We meet some cowardly castle guards who tell us about a shortcut to the castle. It's a big hole in the ground, so why not? Inside are some cave ninjas. That's a sentence I never thought I'd say. They're pretty wily, but you can knock them over with a kick. Then thrust your sword downwards to finish them off. This downward attack is especially strong, but like absorbing souls, it'll leave you vulnerable. We find a mummified monk in front of a temple along with a note. His name was Sogen, and his note tells us about our gauntlet, though it's nothing we didn't already know. Inside the temple itself is a journal written by Sogen's disciple, Saimyo. Saimyo's notes act like the audio logs from BioShock. What I mean is that they'll give you more info about the supernatural world of Onimusha. His first note tells us that this cave is a demon nest, and that the demons hate sunlight, hence living underground. Sogen was determined to banish the demons, while Saimyo takes notes. Here's where we also find our first proper weapon. It's a lightning sword that replaces our katana. We can now do magical attacks with triangle. Simply hit someone with the first slash and you'll automatically perform a big combo. But of course, it uses up some of our magic bar top left. Before exiting the cave, we find the game's first puzzle, a treasure box. Match the inner numbers with the outer ones using the number of moves top left. Inside is a rope ladder we'll use later. Right outside the cave is another puzzle box, but this one can't be solved without translating the ogre's language. How do you do that? Well, throughout the game, we'll find pages that translate for us. You can either find all the pages normally throughout the game, or just Google the answer, since it's not random. They reward you with either a magic or power jewel, which increases your max health or magic bar. They're not mandatory, but helpful items. Though you can also just find these jewels throughout the game too. We finally reach the castle, but it's blocked by a blue orb. These match your weapons. Blue orbs require our first weapon, the blue sword. Some doors have multiple orbs, which require upgraded weapons. For example, a level 2 blue sword will unlock doors blocked by 2 blue orbs. There's 3 melee weapons in the entire game, and they all go up to level 3. Again, you use red orbs to level them, but you can only do so at magic mirror shrines. These shrines double as save points. Interestingly, the HD remaster doesn't use checkpoints. You gotta manually save your progress. This becomes really annoying later on. One last thing, enemies respawn, so although you gotta level up your weapons, you can't get stuck. The option to grind is always there if you need it. Inside the castle courtyard, we encounter a ton of new enemies. We got these roly-poly guys, big minotaurs, and flying guys who absorb souls. Also inside is a green herb. Because Onimusha spawned from Resident Evil, it shares lots of similarities, such as the healing items, pre-rendered backgrounds, and the isometric camera. Speaking of, this remaster looks great. It's over 20 years old? And these backgrounds still look really nice. Even the 3D models don't clash with the backgrounds. The remaster also added 60 FPS and widescreen support. Speaking of, this game does something so simple and so genius. Originally, it had tank controls. It came from Resident Evil and has the same static camera, so yeah, of course it does. But the remaster, you use the left analog stick to move like any other 3D action game, and if you want to use tank controls, rather than go to the options, you just use the D-pad. That's it. Just literally move your thumb a little bit. It's so simple, but it works perfect. Unfortunately, the front door to the castle is blocked with a red orb, so we need another weapon. Nearby is a partially destroyed wall, and we can use the rope ladder we got from earlier to climb down. This is the same guy who killed us at the start of the game. He's also our first real boss battle. The fight itself is okay. You can block his basic attacks, but not his overhead swing or his headbutt. Every enemy in Onimusha will give you a tell before they attack, so you gotta pay attention. Although it's fun, it's also a big missed opportunity. What the devs should have done is have you fight the guy at the start. You'd be expected to die, but if you do win, you die to something else. It's not important. The important part is that our new sword does way more damage than the starting katana. And by this point in the game, when you're fighting him for the second time, you know how the combat works. So by fighting the guy at the start and probably losing, and then fighting him now and winning, you'll feel your own progress. It's the same reason people hate level scaling in open world games. We like to see our characters grow. That can either be just leveling them up, us becoming better players, or both. Onimusha does do that later on, but it would have been cool to have it done here as well. Next to his body is another journal entry from Saimyo. It says that his master was badly hurt while battling the demons. Saimyo feels like a coward, but is determined to record more info about the demons. The demons eat humans. Big shocker. What's a little more surprising is that Nobunaga is sacrificing humans to the demons. It seems he entered a pact with the demons in order to be brought back to life and be given power. The journal entries explain that many great leaders have entered similar pacts, including Alexander the Great and Genghis Khan. Usually they're given power or unique technology. It's a genuinely interesting story premise and makes the world of Onimusha pretty cool.
なんだこの匂いは。なんだ、人間か。てめえのゲームか。大した口の利きようだ。お前のような威勢のいいやつに会うのは信長以来だな。信長？ いいことを教えてやろう。桶狭間で死んだ織田信長を蘇らせたのはこの私だ。信長は我ら現場と契約を結んだ未来永劫を現場に尽くすとな。あ、そうだ、ついさっきできたばかりの新しい息子を見せてやろう。いけレナルド、そいつの腹をかっさばき、滴る血を好きなだけ飲むがいい。
We meet up with Kaide and this boy with an unfortunate haircut.
この子に用があったんじゃないの？
楓、夢丸を頼む。俺は雪見を。
わかったわ。
With Kaide off to find the kid, we find a bow, the game's first of 2 ranged weapons. The HD remaster also made it so that you can swap weapons with just a button, rather than having to go into the menu. The remaster is better in every way except for one, the music. The original soundtrack was created by this guy whose name I can't pronounce. Except it wasn't, because he lied. He suffers from hearing loss, and by the time he was hired to create the game's soundtrack, he was just about deaf. So, he secretly hired another guy, Takeshi Nigaki, to do the soundtrack instead. News of this broke in 2014, so Capcom had an entirely new soundtrack created for this remaster, which many people, myself included, consider serviceable, but just not as good as the original. Why Capcom couldn't pay and credit Takeshi and just keep the original, I'm not sure. But let's take a listen, and you can judge for yourself. We meet up with Kaide, who wasn't able to find the boy, but did find out he's been unofficially adopted by the royal family. He's trying to rescue Princess Yuki, as the two are basically siblings.
雪姫は夢丸を弟のように可愛がり、夢丸も姉上姉上と慕うようになったらしいわ。
それで助けたくてここまでやってきたのか。しかしわからねえ。
This is when the puzzles get kicked into high gear. We have to pull the levers in the correct order. We also swap to Kaide after pulling a lever. It's optional, but you can get improved armor here as well. Next room, next puzzle. Step on the floor tiles in a specific order. Fail, and it's instant death. Not only that, but it kicks you back to the main menu. The remaster didn't add checkpoints. Not the end of the world, right? Well, let's couple that with unskippable cutscenes. Now you have to rewatch the cutscene and redo the lever puzzle again every time you fail the floor puzzle. I died about 5 times here, but the obnoxiousness is just getting started. Because next room, yep, another puzzle. Slide the puzzles around in order to complete the picture. I'm terrible at puzzles, which may be why I don't like them. So here, again, if you fail, you gotta restart. And again, you cannot skip cutscenes. So now there's 2 unskippable cutscenes and 2 unskippable puzzles before you can even retry the sliding puzzle. It's so annoying. Speaking of annoying, we meet this gremlin, Toyotomi Hideyoshi. He's based on the historical figure of the same name. He's also working under Nobunaga and will become the primary antagonist in a later Onimusha game. He's trying to capture the princess for some kind of dark ceremony.
またお会いしましょう、様之助殿。
We reach the top of the castle, and it's time for an epic Japanese sword fight underneath the full moon. Who's this boss? What's his name? Motivation? Doesn't matter, and none's provided. Who cares? This is one of the most fun battles in the game, thanks to how evenly the fight feels. I do have a nitpick though, I wish it were harder. And with his defeat, we unlock the final weapon, a fast dual-bladed staff. With this, we can finally unlock the bottom of the castle.
あ、お姉ちゃんは
もう大丈夫だ、夢丸。何も心配することはないぞ。
お姉ちゃんを
心配するな。雪姫は必ず助け出す。楓、雪姫がどうしてこの子を可愛がっていたかわかるか？戦国大名の姫として生まれ、政略結婚の道具として育てられた雪姫には自由なんて一つもなかった。だから弱い者を見ると自分と同じように思え、放っておけなかったんだ。今の世は強い者だけがのさばりやがって。
様之助。
そうだ、夢丸。お前に世界を見せてやろう。
世界？
うん。4年前、俺は叔父の光秀に勧められ、日本を飛び出した。海の向こうで俺は肌の色も言葉も違う多くの人間と出会い、日本では到底経験できない体験をした。夢丸、世界にはお前の知らないことがいっぱいあるぞ。自由がある、希望がある。それをたくさん見てみんなに教えてやるんだ。小さな領土を争って戦なんかしてもつまらねえってな。
助けて。
誰だお前は？
ご正室初姫様の腰元でぬいと申します。雪姫様が地下に。
しっかりしろ。楓、残された時間はあとわずかだ。俺は雪姫を助けに行く。この腰元と夢丸は頼んだぞ。
わかったわ。
Heading down to the basement of the castle, it's full of these gross, gooey walls, and a door with screaming souls that's really playing up the game's connection with Devil May Cry. This area is full of more lore regarding the demons. Specifically, a journal talks about the dark ceremony that Hideyoshi referenced earlier. This ceremony requires a human to drink blood that's been blessed by the Demon King. Pretty dark stuff. The sacrifice must also be of nobility, hence capturing the princess. If Obunaga does this, he'll be granted powers like Alexander the Great. And there's another journal nearby that talks about the class system of the demons. Most are mindless, which is the vast majority of enemies you encounter, but some, like the scientist demon, are very intelligent. It's assumed that these greater demons account for about 1 out of 10,000 demons, but they're all under the Demon King, who's been an entity since before humans. Further into the castle, we again run into Hideyoshi.
黒い。
仕方ないですな。あなたはまだ玄馬の本当の恐ろしさを知らないのだ。地の底にいる玄馬たちよ、いよいよ本番だ。暗黒儀式の準備をしろ。儀式の邪魔をする様之助殿には地獄の苦しみをたっぷり味わっていただきましょう。今頃はあのくのいちも。
様之助、何かわかった？何するんだ！離せ！ 夢丸夢丸
Just don't think about why they left Kaede alive. Samanosuke is captured, and for the first time, we not only play as Kaede, but fight with her too. She is noticeably not as powerful as Samanosuke, but she does have her own interesting combo and weapon. She is a ninja, and is better used to simply run by most enemies. Especially because we don't have Samanosuke's gauntlet, there's really no reason to fight. We meet a few castle guards who point us towards where we need to go. It's worth mentioning the entire castle is open to you with the exception of locked doors, which you'll slowly unlock as you progress throughout the game. While exploring the castle, we find another Saimyo journal entry. He's caught a glimpse of the demon world. A demon gate has been opened in Inabayama Castle, and it's presumably where they've taken Princess Yuki, Samanosuke, and the boy. Saimyo's desperate to see into the gate one last time before he dies. Kaide's section is probably my least favorite in the entire game. That is, if you discount the 3 consecutive puzzles we experienced earlier. You're decentivized to fight, but the main and really the sole gameplay is just running from point A to find a key to unlock point B. I guess it is new content. I mean, you explore different areas of the castle that you can't with Samanosuke, but I'm really just missing the gauntlet. You do find a sacred knife, which does more damage, but the combo is the same. This section isn't long, and it's not awful either, it just feels hollow. I will give credit though, most games that have you swap characters, especially during the time Onimusha came out, would mean a stealth section. Capcom's other title, Shadow of Rome, is a glaring example of this. Thank God they didn't do that here.
ちょっと待ってて今助けるわ
あなた、楓さんね。様之助が昔手紙に書いてきたことがあるの。楓という忍びと一緒に旅をしているって。
もしやあなた様は
私も様之助と一緒にあちこち旅をしてみたい。
雪姫様
楓さん、あなたが羨ましい。
きっとできます化け物
お前はここで死んでおけ
雪姫様雪姫様雪姫様
I mentioned at the start of the video how important feeling the power scale in games is. This fight not only does that, but the music is great too. You fight one invisible guy, and the game plays it up as a big deal, and it kind of is. He's not super easy, but you gotta keep an eye on his tells, but later on, we'll destroy these guys. Our perspective changes back to Samanosuke, but we're caught by a dark version of ourselves. Again, why didn't they just kill us when we were unconscious? I don't know. Anyway, this fight too is lots of fun. Almost any boss in a game where the enemy has similar abilities to your own, it's usually gonna be a good time. The Devil May Cry series does this a lot. We head to the Demon's Gate, encounter the servant who knocked us out, and get a cutscene I don't want to talk about.
よう、そんなに驚くことはねえぜ。ちったん付き合っていけんよ。魔空空間ってとこがあってよ。先に進めば進むほど宝が手に入る夢のようなとこなんだが、お前
It's time for the Dark Realm. If you're familiar with Devil May Cry's Bloody Palace, then you'll know what this is. Head down about 100 floors, facing increasingly difficult enemies. At the final floor is an ocarina. We'll use this to unlock the game's most powerful weapon. But here's the thing about the Dark Realm. The game lets you revisit it, and it doesn't tell you there's no reason to. In fact, the little guy who sends you here, he just repeats his lines about a rumor of a powerful weapon. If anything, it pushes you to go again and again. And how many times did I go? I went 3 times. 3 goddamn times, completing the game's challenge rooms for nothing. I already maxed everything out. If anything, I wasted healing items and it was a net loss. I think this may have even doubled my total playtime. But you know what? For all my complaining, I actually had fun the entire time. It was tense because there were rewards and consequences. I feel like modern games lean way too heavily into rewards with just little or no consequences. Onimusha is a fresh reminder of that balance I didn't know I missed. Though it would have been nice if the game hinted I didn't need to go again. We find Saimyo's final journal entry. Despite being turned into a demon-obsessed cannibal, he leaves us with a helpful hint on opening the demon gate. This is actually so clever, and I can't remember the last time I've seen something like this in a game before. So the drawing behind the text tells us how to open the gate. If you look closely, it's someone shooting a strange-looking arrow at the gate. That's it. It's simple, but it demands you pay attention. Continuing on, nearby the castle is a waterfall, and it's where we find the game's final piece of armor, as well as a boss fight with the bug lady. Before the battle, Kaide notices fireworks around the building. How convenient. The fight's not really difficult, but because she is flying, you can only hit her with ranged weapons, a magical attack, or one of the few times she's in range. I think it's the worst boss battle in the entire game.
Kaide, ここでゆっくり休んでいるんだ。ゲンマメ。待っていろ、雪姫、姫丸。今助けに行くからな。
With Kaede resting, we search the castle to find the holy bow and arrow. These are referenced in Saimyo's drawing. Now it's time to settle the score. We have the best armor, maxed out our weapons, and even got a gun. The demons of the underworld are nothing against a smoothbore musket firing hot lead.
This fight is similar to the top of the castle, but at this point, we're so strong that we can just spam magic attacks and healing items. Just past him is a treasure that's been a long time coming. We play the ocarina to unlock a door and gain access to the Bishamon sword. It one-shots enemies and has unlimited magical attacks. You're basically invincible with this thing. So with it, time for the final showdown.
望の杯に満たされた生き血を飲み干すのだ。
やめろ。
お姉ちゃん。
この身が滅びようとお前だけは必ず倒す。
This is Fortinbras. I think I'm pronouncing that right. He's got a strange name, but he's also the king of the demons. Unfortunately, we can't one-shot him with the sword, but the fight's still a cakewalk. His attacks are very slow, and lots of them are blockable.
Kaide, 早く。
夢丸、お兄ちゃん。
早く逃げるんだ。さあ。
夢丸。
逃がすか、虫けらども。
サマノスケ。サマノスケ。
行け、行くんだ。
And that's Onimusha Warlords. We get an epilogue detailing the fates of the characters. Nobunaga eventually conquered Inabayama Castle. Princess Yuki and the boy took Samanosuke's advice and left Japan to travel the world. Meanwhile, Kaede kept searching for Samanosuke, but never found him. She also was employed as a ninja for another lord, but then died 14 years later. Yikes. And of course, Samanosuke was never heard from again. Or was he? Spoiler, he'll be returning in a future game, but we'll get to that when we get to it. Overall, I had a lot of fun. It's really not hard to see why Onimusha Warlords has a small but dedicated fanbase. And also why it's sad Capcom has more or less forgotten about the series. Though I am curious to see how the series progresses. I know there are a bunch of sequels, but I don't really know anything about them. But that's for another time. I'm Soft Pixel, consider subscribing if you've made it this far, and I'll see you guys next time.